Hello, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our TF Together session with Elizabeth Connolly, who is a therapist here in Florence, and she's going to be discussing, and we're going to have a chat really about the mental health effects during this crisis. And so perhaps first we could begin with you telling us a little bit about yourself, Elizabeth, and how you came to Florence and perhaps some of the work that you do.
Hi, welcome everybody. I'm Canadian and I moved to Florence about 10 years ago. And I say I had post-traumatic snow disorder growing up in an area where for 2 months of the year it's minus 30 degrees at least. And so I decided that enough with the snow. I'd been to Italy before. And so I just took the plunge and came to Florence.
My goodness, we were just speaking briefly before about the kind of temperatures you were used to, and I don't know how you're managing in this extreme opposite, but thank you so much for joining us, Elizabeth. We do welcome anyone to ask in any questions that they'd like to ask Elizabeth during this talk, and we'll have a Q&A session at the end. Could perhaps begin then with what you see as some of the effects of this prolonged stress in this experience?
Well, I think people are wondering, they don't know if it's the planets alignment or if there's 6 planets in Mercury in retrograde, but everybody that I talk to is about over 2020. They're all kind of praying that the last half of 2020 is going to be better than the first half of 2020. I think the combination of COVID and everything that has come along with that. And then also some heightened world issues right now, political issues, particularly because I work with the expat community. Politics go light that is really stressing people out. Some people are feeling anxiety. Some people are actually being triggered into previous trauma, triggered into. Jane, are you there?
Hello, Elizabeth, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. See, this is what happens when you go live during Mercury Retrograde.
I'm telling you, just as you were saying it, it's exactly what happened. My sincere apologies, and thank you. Thankfully, we've gotten back we just lost a moment of our conversation. And so as you were saying, could you pick up where you were still speaking?
Well, what I was saying is that this is a really difficult time for a lot of people right now. And so a lot of people in particular are feeling feelings of anxiousness and feelings of powerlessness.
Right. And do you think there's a difference between what's normal, things that are all to the forefront of this experience for many, but where do you see that as becoming something where people need to seek perhaps some help?
Well, I think a lot of the people that I work with, and even friends, people that I socialize with, some of what they're feeling, I think, is completely normal during the time. It is normal to be anxious about your job future right now. It is normal to be anxious about being able to pay the rent. It is normal right now that you're having really weird dreams, because our dreams are our window to our unconsciousness. And people, are telling me some of their dreams and wondering if they're losing their minds. But when they tell me about the dream, really, it says what's going on for them unconsciously in terms of anxiety. And they're symbolic of the anxiety that they're going through. And all of that is normal right now. I think during COVID too, people were particularly troubled at the beginning when we were in serious lockdown. Those of us in Italy, we had a much more stringent lockdown than people in Canada or the United States or the UK, for example. And so I think our people were worried that they didn't want to get out of their pajamas. They weren't washing their hair for days. They tried to embrace, I'm going to paint that painting or finish that book. And they just couldn't muster the energy. And they were being critical of themselves. And I feel that they needed to be kind to themselves, because I think our brain went into first gear as a survival mechanism. And now, particularly those of us in Florence, where we're, reopened, our brain is now sort of getting into third gear, not quite ready for fourth gear, but all of that is normal. I think when we need to seek some help is if, you know, the anxiety is really overtaking us, or if we're really stuck in a negativity or ruminating thoughts that are consuming us. You know,
Right.
fine line, for example, with the political issues, to be checking in and educating yourself. It's another thing if you find yourself spending 8 hours a day, you know, stuck to the computer. So, you know, most of us, we can feel when we're really out of sorts. And then I think we need to have the strength and the wisdom to seek some help if we feel like our anxiety is taking over us, if we're eating more or less, drinking more than what we normally would to self-medicate the stress, if we're not sleeping at night. Those are all things that, you know, we need to watch for. That can be our body's way of saying we need a little extra support.
Okay, and in terms of if you do feel at that point, then what support should you seek out? Talking, obviously, to a therapist is, you know, critical in looking for some guidance in how to manage those emotions. What other recommendations would you have?
Well, I think we should all you know, turn to our support system too. Whatever you're feeling, your friends or family are probably feeling the exact same thing. You know,
Right.
they've been walking in your shoes alongside of you. And for me, relationships are two-way. And, you know, I know, for example, I have my support system with my great girlfriends. And, you know, through lockdown, we had this WhatsApp group that we weren't allowed to talk about anything Trump, anything COVID. It was all just sort of expressing how we were feeling that day and cheering one another on. And so we really helped each other get through the lockdown. And I think it's important that we turn to our support system because we like being there to support other people. Mammals are tribal social beings. And so it's important that we engage in our tribe. Having said that, if that doesn't seem to be working, then yes, it's important to seek some therapeutic support. And even sometimes if we find ourselves that we have a history of anxiety or trauma and it has sort of reared its head again, I think you need to be open to perhaps it's time to go on some anti-anxiety medication or an antidepressant. Doesn't mean you're going to be on it forever, but just to help you adjust through this difficult time. And there's, you know, an excellent psychiatrist here in town, Dr. Tube, who's absolutely wonderful when it comes to assisting people psychiatrically.
That's wonderful to have those, as you said, the support network you have around you too. I think, you know, perhaps people might feel it's difficult to reach out about this, especially when they might say everybody's struggling. But that doesn't mean, I suppose, that doesn't mean that your struggle is valued less. I mean, and as you said, people are happy to help and they are there for you. Just look around and see who that person will be to help you, I guess. What are the emotions then you see as being very dominant right now? And what can you define as the really, I suppose, in one sense, healthy emotions was something you were saying versus unhealthy?
Well, I think that, again, it's normal to have some anxiety about our future, you know, particularly those of us in Florence or Italy, where, you know, our future really depends on tourism. So, and we don't know, you know, when we're going to get back to normal when it comes to tourism. So you would be, you know, have a dissociative disorder if you didn't have a little bit of anxiety about seeing your bank account go down. And, you know, wondering about, you know, how you're going to pay the rent if you don't know when you're getting back to work.
Right.
But other than anxiety, what I'm seeing right now that's really impacting people is anger, is rage regarding the politics that are going on, particularly in the US and the UK, and the racism that is going on in the world and the police shootings and that. And
horrifying.
You know, people are trying to educate themselves on that and they care. So they're wanting to engage in it. But again, there's a fine line between caring and wanting to engage and it taking over your life. So
Yes.
sometimes, you know, for a lot of people, our world feels out of control and there's just so much negativity. And I think it's really important that, you know, we try to focus on, that's not letting go of the other stuff, but we take time in our day to focus on what we can control. We can't control when the tourists are coming back, but we can get some sense of a control if our house is tidy, you know, if we get our to-do list done in the day. And I think it's really important too that we take time to focus on what is good in our day. I say particularly at this time when we go to bed at night, we need to think about 3 good things in our day, because when there's so much negativity right now in the world, we can lose a sense of what is good and what we're grateful for. And I think also if we can try to action some of that anger or powerlessness to be taking steps in what we can control. For example, some of us attended the protest in Florence. I have a Black Lives Matter hanging out, Matter flag hanging out my window. I try to live my values. You know, climate change is important to me. I take time to recycle. I buy groceries for a needy person every couple of weeks. So if we can do little things that are taking some action, then that can help sort of, you know, contain the anger that we're feeling. And I do think we need to take some time to just check out of it. And again, that doesn't mean that we don't care. We're self-caring because our brains can only handle so much. So I think now as things are reopening, it's important for us to have, you know, smart contact, you know, where, you know, we get together with 1 or 2 people, not 20 people, you know, that if we're going out for a drink, we wear our mask on the way to that restaurant kind of thing. But again, we as mammals need social contact. And I know particularly at the end of the lockdown here, a lot of people were starting to feel depressed because they were just craving a hug. They were just craving social contact. You know, so many people said, I just need a hug. You know, so I think it's important that we start to have some of that smart contact again, because there's actual research that shows that our brain secretes happy drugs when we're with other people.
Okay.
And so it's important that we be taking some steps back to our normal life and again, having smart contact with people. And then I know with my friends, you know, when we get together, it's don't talk about Trump, you know, don't talk about COVID. It's not, you know, we all know that we do the research. We all know that we're in on the issues. It doesn't mean that we don't talk about it sometimes, but we have times where, no, it's just positivity, just laughter. Because, you know, there is the old saying, laughter is, you know, the best medicine. And there's truth to that.
No, absolutely. And I think you're right. I think we're surrounded at the moment by an enormous amount of negativity and worry, and as you say, anger. And that can only exacerbate any problems of anxiety and, you know, more personal issues regarding finances or however else you've been affected by this crisis. I think your advice is completely right. I'm just having to think about any of my last Google searches or any of my last things I've been following, and yet you're right. We need to start focusing on things that lift us up and not, you know, keep us ruminating somewhere deep, you know, darker. I guess as well. Another thing I was curious about was something you mentioned. We were discussing this earlier, is about triggers and what this can trigger for people as well.
Well, I think for people of color or people who are of the gay community or transgender, you know, they can be getting triggered just watching the news, you know, about, you know, the tragic killings by police officers. Or if people have had an event in their life where, you know, they experience violence, you know, watching that in the news, they can empathize with what that person went through at an even bigger level than another person who is empathetic but hasn't exactly walked in those shoes. So that's finding that it's when our brain, the way our brain works is when it's kind of sees a trauma or something that resembles our trauma, our own file opens up in our brain. And it can bring up our own Pandora's box of feelings and even our own Pandora's box of unhealthy coping mechanisms. And we usually know that because we kind of feel viscerally the trigger. You know, our blood is boiling, or we can feel anxiety, you know, feelings of feeling overwhelmed or depression. And then it's important to do sort of a reality check on ourselves and have our good coping mechanisms click in. And if you aren't sure what they are or what they should be, then again, that's a good time to see a therapist to try and develop the healthier coping mechanisms.
Yes, I think that's probably where people might struggle, is seeing where can the light be, where can the way out of feeling like that be, and perhaps people thinking, I can't change it because the situation isn't changing, but I guess what you do have control over is how you react and put it in a kind of
situation, but we can control how we react to the situation.
Yes.
But sometimes we need some help because our brain does autopilot to our old coping mechanisms that we developed as children. And often our coping mechanisms that we developed as children served us very well, such as denial, tuning out, if you had like an alcoholic parent or something like that. But they don't serve us as an adult. And so sometimes we need to learn what our autopilot coping mechanisms are and then how we can change them. But I think it's important to note that COVID and what's going on in the world actually hasn't been bad for everybody, from the standpoint that I'm seeing lots of people where it's been like cement bricks hitting them over the head. The bricks hitting us over the head from the universe we weren't getting. And so now we're getting hit over with cement blocks, sorry, not cement bricks. And it's caused people to sort of reflect more about their life, their happy, their relationships. And sometimes people have been complacent in a relationship or their life, or they're in a relationship and the couple has just been in parallel motion. And so now this time has had them doing a lot of self-reflection on what they want for their happy. And are they actually happy right now? And although it's a difficult time, it's a transition time, and a transition time for some people to be taking charge of their life and to be making changes that they should have maybe made a year or two ago. And they're saying, okay, now is the time. And that's a good thing for some people.
I think it's interesting you say that. In my own circle, I've seen a few people make big life-changing decisions, but I guess it's, as you say, we've had this time to press pause, look around and think, is this actually where I want to be and what I want to be doing now?
Because in lockdown, we've sort of been stuck in our homes, in our head. We don't have the distractions of work, of being out all the time, of shopping, of running around, getting everything done. We're being, and sometimes for some of us, just sitting in that being has caused us to say, it's time for change.
Yes, absolutely. And
that's a good thing.
Or one of the things I know, sorry, I'm spoken to you.
There's a saying that I love. Years ago, there was a book that was on the New York Times bestseller list for years called The Shack. And there's a saying in there that I love, that sometimes we have to go through a personal crucifixion for a personal resurrection. And for some people, that is what this time is.
Right. That's fantastic. It's interesting to be put in that way also. But I guess if it has helped people change their lives for the better, then as you said, this has been a good situation for them in one sense. It's prompted them to make that change that is going to put them in a better place. What I've noticed, even just daily walking into shops or seeing in the piazza, are explosions of anger. I've noticed people getting very angry over minimum causes, with minimum cause, and I've been curious about, is that something universal? And I guess it goes back to what you already said about rage, but just even in a minor sense of, people serving in shops and feeling the constant worry and drain of the experience, people coming in and out of it, and then, possibly also other issues going on for them. But I just feel a kind of a universal empathy as well for all the people I see with this. And I guess I think we all need more empathy for each other, because we are all dealing with one or other thing in this experience. And I think there's possibly, if we were kind to each other as well as kind to ourselves, that would also be another way of helping each other through this time as well.
Well, I think you're absolutely right that it's important that we have empathy for others. And I think we need to recognize that people have bad days, and often reaction behavior or anger is more about depression, is more about anxiety. And so, having patience with that person doesn't mean you're condoning that behavior. But if you understand where it's coming from, then you can have less anger yourself and maybe react in a compassionate way towards them. Because there's a lot of people that have some big worries right now. And again, we know when we're grumpy. I know when I'm having a grumpy day. And then it's important that we take time to escape and do what makes us happy. For me, it's gardening. For me, it's cuddling with my pets, For some people, for me, it's getting together with a girlfriend. It could be going for a run. In lockdown, I am such a non-artist, but I did a painting, I think we need to be open-minded to be what made us happy before we may not be able to do now, like go to the gym. So we have to turn to a plan B, but we need to take some time for our happy. And in fact, we need to take some time to just be silly, and then in a couple hours, you can step back into your life. But by taking a step out of it for a couple hours, that's not denial, that's self-care. And then you're recharged a bit to then tackle another day.
Right, of course. And I think that's another issue too, is the stamina in all of this. I mean, there are times the constant hard work of keeping your emotions balanced and, trying to manage anxiety, trying to manage anger. That's exhausting too. It is absolutely exhausting.
It is. And a lot of people are just exhausted. They say, they're just over 2020,
Yeah.
At least now, a lot of us, we can get outside, which, getting outside for some fresh air really helps. And if your brain is telling you to take to your bed with Netflix, that is your brain lying to you. It's one thing to take some time to watch a movie, a chick flick, something that makes you happy. But it's another thing to take to your bed for 12 hours kind of thing. That's your brain lying to you, trying to suck you into a depression. So getting out is kind of like going to the gym. We always feel better after. So sometimes we just have to push ourselves into doing what would normally be our happy behavior.
And that's interesting. And what you said about watching Netflix being your brain lying to you. I mean, I possibly would have said, oh, that's my brain telling me I need a break. And that's exactly what I should be doing. But then, as you
said, is one movie or 2 or 3 episodes. It is not a whole season.
Right, fair point. Fair clarification there.
Or 2 seasons. In your pajamas.
What about then if you are perhaps living with someone or someone close to you, you can see them clearly struggling? What's your advice for how to be a good friend or good sister or whatever else it is to that person and help them?
Well, I think it's important to let them know that it's okay for them to be able to talk about how they're feeling. Some people, particularly people who are traditionally strong people, and particularly people who tend to be there for others, they can find it difficult to accept help themselves. I can be one of those people. And I think it's important to say, you know, I'm having a hard day. And it's important to say to the friend, the other person, you know, I'm there for you. I'm sending a hug, or, you know, now we can give that hug to that person. And to let them know that you don't have to be strong all the time, reminding them that they're there for each other. But I think it's important not to try and tell them what they're feeling. It's important to ask them what they're feeling and to ask them what they need. They may need time for you. They may need time alone. And then you need to not take it personally, you know?
Right.
And so they may need you to take out the garbage and do the groceries all week. You know, you need to, if you're living with somebody, you need to check in with each other. And it's even good to do it once a week to what's coming up in our week. What do we need from each other in the week? You know, and then you can check in over dinner or, you know, a coffee in the morning on how you're doing.
Because that's wonderful.
We can't expect people to read our minds in terms of what we need. So,
right, of course.
You know, and sometimes it's hard for people to say, I need help or I need a hug. So you can say, looks like you're having a bad day. What do you need from me? I'm there for you.
Perfect. So that's a great line, actually. That's possibly the best advice I think I'd like to use anyways, to say to someone, what do you need? How can I help? And be a good listener too, I suppose.
Yes.
Allow them space to explain.
They just need to vent. I think particularly people who are in couple relationships, the other person can want to fix their partner who's having a bad day. First of all, you can't fix anybody else. Second of all, often people don't want to be fixed. They just want to be heard. They just want to vent, you know. And so just let them vent, you know, and say everything they need to say. And then, you know, you can validate how they're feeling. And then, is there anything you need from me?
Yes. That's wonderful.
Well, I think you should X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, that's it. And it can be very hard to take that too, I suppose, if somebody is feeling that way. They don't necessarily want an answer. I think that's, you know, I can think, you know,
what to
the
do.
times no, but definitely it's saying the right thing can be hard, but I guess it's asking the right questions is the more important thing to get right. I guess.
Asking the right questions and listening are the two important things.
Absolutely. I would love if anyone would have any questions for Elizabeth too. You can feel free to ask Elizabeth any questions here in the comments. Elizabeth's email is here also. If you did ever want to get in touch with Elizabeth, that's possible too. I'll post it here. And I suppose, Elizabeth, is there anything else has been running through your mind throughout all of this experience that you'd love to discuss about mental health during this crisis?
I'm just looking at my notes here. I guess what I really want people to remember is not to bottle things up. You know, to listen to your body, you know, our intuition, how we think our body is, it's usually never wrong. We just don't listen to it sometimes. And then things become out of control. Don't wait for the out of control. And then again, I think it's really important that no matter what's going on in our life, we take some time in the day for some positivity. I'm not saying that's easy, you know, but, you know, even if the positive thing is it was sunny today rather than raining, it doesn't have to be a big positive thing, you know, but to just try to be mindful that we don't sort of get entrenched in the negativity and to really action our happy. There's no magic fairy dust for our happy. I think we need to wake up every day, even if it's going to be a challenging day, even if it's going to be a challenging month. Today, what am I going to action for my happy? And it could be little things. It could be going to San Ambrosio Market and buying cherries, you know, but what am I doing today to action my happy?
Absolutely. The simple pleasures, I guess, which are all around us once we start paying more attention to them.
Yes.
And have you seen this? I mean, I can imagine the answer, but I'm also interested have you really seen this as a huge increase in people struggling with mental health in terms of these last few months? Has it come to your attention that far higher number?
Yes. I saw a study that in the US, 47% of people it was a recent study, 47% of people were saying that the politics were impacting on their day-to-day functioning, how they were performing at work, So I have been seeing it a lot. I think it's for young people too. People are struggling with maybe their parents' politics or their parents' values, or other family members, which can be very different than theirs. Or even their friends, which they didn't know about until all the talk of the last few months. And also I've been finding with just in my work that I do video sessions with people literally all over the world. And I'm finding that people are reaching out to me that I haven't heard from in a year or two, because they find themselves struggling in this time. And they just need a little tune-up, a little bit of support during this time, and then they'll go off on their way again, kind of thing.
Just as you were speaking, there a question has come in from Samantha, who has asked, how can parents help children cope with their feelings if they're feeling frustrated or anxious after so many months of no school and that summer program likely cancelled? That is certainly an important question, because it's something a lot of parents are absolutely no doubt experiencing. What would you be your answer for that?
It's a really difficult time for children right now, because a lot of them, they're just not at an age where they understand what is going on in the world. They just know that their lives are upside down, and it's a really difficult time for children because they're used to playing. They're used to wearing off energy. So I think it's important that we try and give children some control in ways that are okay. It doesn't really matter what clothes they decide to wear in the day, even if it doesn't match, It doesn't matter whether, what vegetable they're eating, as long as they get in a vegetable kind of thing, So give them some control over what they can now. And then I think it's really important that, I've been talking to parents lately that you got to get your kids outside again in a smart way, because it was getting to the point, at least here in Italy, where we were on such a strict lockdown that it was impacting on children's mental health. And so it's trying to be getting them out in a safe way to be wearing off that energy, because again, when children are playing, that is their happy drug. And so it's important to, be getting them engaged in play again. And we can ask our children too, to a degree, what is it that they need this week,
I think I've noticed myself with a toddler, even you would imagine a toddler who doesn't understand the situation or whatever else, the impact is still very, very evident. And I've noticed as well when he's playing in the piazza, when there's other children around, there's nearly a fearfulness, and I think I've noticed it as well, an additional aggression, because children, they're lashing out because they're absorbing all of our emotions.
Sort of the climate of our home, and they don't have the words to be able to communicate. And we can help our children with developing a feeling vocabulary, even vocabulary, even printing off from the internet different faces with different feelings, and you can be at the dinner table. What is something that made you happy today? Here's what made me happy. What is something that made you angry today, and show the face. Here's something that made me angry that's age appropriate. I think some people with some older children that, they do need, that are on the internet, kids 11, 12 and above, you do need to talk to them in a way that's appropriate for them about what's going on. And it can be a learning opportunity. And I know there's, like, NBC News has a specific newscast every night that's geared towards children. That's absolutely outstanding. So for older kids, you may want to be sitting with them and watching that kind of thing.
I think that idea about the happy and angry emotions is fantastic, and I've used it. I have tried to teach my 3-year-old I asked that exact same question. What has made you happy today? What has made you sad? What has made you angry? And it's amazing, the answers. You know, giving them the tool to talk about that is something I've seen have very positive effects. And equally, my son is now able to say, that made me sad, or you made me feel sad, you know, and I think being able to say that is an excellent expression. And I think I nearly kind of think I wish I had been better younger at expressing emotions. I think it's something definitely as adults too, we need to improve about saying, you know, today I feel really angry, why? And looking at that too and seeing where's that anger originating.
And for the younger kids, because again, they may not be aware of what they need, you can give them some choices, you know. Do you need a hug? You know, do you need a little bit of quiet time in your room? Do you need mom to read a story to you? Do you need to just go for a walk around the block with mom or dad? You know, so that you can help them identify, you know, give them ideas, brainstorm what they need, you know, and they may say, I need a chocolate ice cream. Well, you may not want to give them the chocolate ice cream at that time. You might. But, you know, okay, you can't have the chocolate ice cream, but how about, you know, give them some options.
I think that would even work for us. You know, I think if we even just looked at it at ourselves and think, hang on, I'm feeling this way. What are my options to help me stop feeling like this? And I think rationalizing it in some sense and making you process that emotion and trying to put a logic on it can help you keep it contained, I guess, too, and not allow it to completely overwhelm you.
And I think it's important for all parents. Okay, we all love our children, you know, but we need a break from them, you know. And I think it's important for parents to take a break from them. And if you're a single parent, you can ask a friend, you know, to watch your child for you. Most people, you know, would be happy to do that. If you're in a relationship, somebody can, you know, get time off and go out and do, you know, something outside of the house. And then, you know, you can take turns doing that, because it has been a lot, particularly for parents who have been educating their children, you know. I had my cleaning woman keep coming during the COVID because she's got 4 children and just lives a minute from me. I happen to have a terrace. She would take half an hour just to have a cigarette and a coffee and to chill from her 4 kids before she would clean my house. And she said it was like coming on a vacation for her, getting a break from the 4 children. And she loves her children. She's an excellent mother. But everybody needs a break sometime, and you need to not feel like a bad parent because you need a break. And, you know, you'll come back better charged to be on duty for being a parent again.
That's it. I think any parent who's worked during this period or has smart worked or has, you know, tried to manage and balance both and trying to keep everybody happy, I think is the hardest part of it all. Like both, you know, your other family members and yourself.
And parents are teachers, and to having, you know, all parents who have had to engage in teaching their children, and often more than one child. You know, my heart went out to them, you know.
Yes. No, it's been a very exhausting period. And I think it's very difficult at this point too to kind of, you know, do we feel relief? Are we on the other side of it? Do we need to keep up this stamina? I think there's also a feeling of, are we on the other side of it? Are we in transition? And I think that lack of clarity and the uncertainty too is possibly, you know, part of the reason people feel so exhausted. I think we'd love to just wake up and say, as of Monday, things are going to be okay.
We're all back to normal. As soon as the grade is over in the middle of July, okay, that's it. Everything is good now. I'm not sure that's going to happen. I would like it to happen, but I think because we've been through, I mean, different people are at different places. You know, joining the land of the living again. The U.S., some states, it's still quite problematic. So you can't go to the beach, you know, but some people in Canada are now able to go to their lake houses. You know, we in Florence are now able to, you know, go to our second homes or the beach or, you know, a friend's house in the countryside. I do think we need to take a break, you know, in however we can afford that. And I think, again, you know, people are there to help each other. If you have a friend with a house in the country, you know, speak up, can I just get out of the city for a couple of days? Most people are quite happy to do that kind of thing. And just, again, check out, take a break. Friday, I'm going to the sea myself, just overnight, you know, because I just need that sea. Well, I just want to float, you know, for a few hours. And then I'll get back to my life.
That's it. I think nature and the sea and a cuddle, whether it's a pet or your child, and hugging that person you love or animal you love close to you, and allowing that to give you the comfort. And equally just a walk in nature.
We're mammals in the animal kingdom. We're social beings. There's all kinds of research that says we need hugs, you know? Yes. And I know in my friend group, as things are getting safer here, we're starting to hug each other again. And it just feels good.
It must be like magic after so long, you know. It's
because we got to a period where we were really craving to be touched.
Oh, yes. No, absolutely. And anyone who's experienced quarantine by themselves, I can imagine more than, you know, perhaps more than anyone, really feels that need for contact. And I suppose offering that to people we know as well, perhaps an elderly neighbor, not necessarily that you're going to go hugging all your neighbors, but certainly checking in on them, I guess, is something you could do. And
you know, a smile or, you know, asking somebody how they're doing goes a long way. You know, just showing them some attention. If you have an elderly woman in your building, you know, taking them home some flowers, even from Conad, little things like that.
And there's a huge pick-me-up in that, in what seems like just a small gesture. It's an easy way to, so going back to what I was saying about helping each other through this as well, and having empathy for the, you know, people's situations, and
just somebody know that they're not alone through this. You know, we're there to support each other.
Absolutely. And I think there has been a strong sense of unity. I do think people have shown, you know, the positive of this has been that people have demonstrated a willingness to help others. I do have another question here for you from Mirtha, who has asked, how do you get those hugs and moments of belonging when you are totally isolated, single, and kids are away? I get out and paddle daily or ride bike and chat with people, but I feel that deep emptiness and it's difficult to meet new friends. That's an understandably very difficult situation. I'm sorry. What would you say to someone who feels that?
Well, I think that, you know, you try to turn to, even if it means, you know, getting in a car and going somewhere to somebody, you know, a family member or a friend that can help you. Or even if you're out for that walk or that bike ride, if you see a dog, you know, just take a few minutes to pet that dog, to let that dog kiss you, to hug that dog. My little toy poodle Annabelle has been accosted on the streets of Florence, you know, and she's soaking up all the hugs. Yes. Especially if, you know, in the severe lockdown and I would get my groceries at San Ambrosio, people would just love to give her a hug, and I would be patient and let people do that. So if you can't get it from a person near you, see if there's a pet around you. You know, some puppy kisses can make you feel a lot better.
I think about what this person's question about meeting new friends too is another thing I feel like a lot of people are possibly searching for right now. Is they possibly have had time to look around their circle and see that it's small here in Florence. Perhaps they just moved here. So I suppose for those people, looking up options for volunteering, or whether there's a group to
volunteering, you know, like dog walking even, or most cities have community groups, you know, for example, we have expat women in Florence, we have foreigners in Florence, you know, and put yourself out there. I've been seeing foreigners in Florence. You know, I've just arrived to Florence. Anybody out there would like to get a coffee or to go for a hike? Dare to take a chance and put it out there. And, you know, for safety reasons, you go to a public place until you get to know one another. Because if we don't take a chance, there's Annabelle. Sorry, the wind hit the window.
Puppy kisses right there.
Put ourselves out there, we won't meet new people. I remember,
Yes.
for example, when I first moved to Florence, I didn't speak Italian. My Italian is still terrible, my friends would say, but I didn't know anybody. And I took a chance and went to Expat Women in Florence. It was run by somebody else then. And I went to some other expat events and different groups, and just things like going to art galleries and that. And that's how I met people, you know.
Yes.
Again, there's no magic fairy dust for friends. We have to put energy into it, and we have to be willing to take a chance. And still, there's lots of times I'll get invited to something here, and I know the person hosting it, but I'm not going to know anybody else at that. You know, I look at it as an opportunity to be meeting new people. Walking through the door, you may be a little bit nervous, but most people are welcoming. Most people, you know, you can strike up a chat, and you never know, you know, there's a new best friend out there in the world for you. You got to be out there engaging to meet them. It's a little bit more challenging now, as again, different people are at different places in terms of lockdown.
Yes.
But look for things to see how you can meet new people. Sorry, the wind in my hair.
I think you're right. And also perhaps not being perturbed if the first 2-3 people you speak to, you know, aren't in a position to be a new friend at that time, or even if they don't give you any kind of response. I think it's persistence too, because there is somebody out there in as much of a need as a friend as you too, you know. So I think it's
absolutely. And I think you know, a lot of people in different cities are, and you know, when they've been cut off from their families and friends from other cities, they are really, you know, more sensitive now to wanting a support system where they are. So again, while social media can be bad and even toxic, it can also be good. So look for those Facebook pages that bring people together, and take a chance to say.
I think as well the enormous receptiveness to that. It's been fantastic to see people, you know, saying I need help, or rather I'd like to make a new friend, and there are responses, you know, so there is hope.
Well, there are, because I know when I watched the Foreigners in Florence site, somebody saying I'm new, or hey, you know, would somebody like to get a coffee or go for a walk? There's always people that say I would. You know, I'll PM you, kind of thing. So just, what do you have to lose in asking? We've lost your sound, Jane. We can't hear you.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, again, Mercury Retrograde.
Technical things are not my way this evening, but we've finished with a huge thank you, Elizabeth. You've been so helpful. It's fantastic to talk about it, you know, and to see that we are all, you know, experiencing a lot of the same things. And I think we'll finish as well with a comment from Helen, who has said that dancing like a lunatic with friends on a Saturday night has never felt sweeter, and dancing makes everything right again. So
I absolutely agree with you. There's been lots of dancing on my terrace that has been the best mental health.
Oh, fantastic. There you go. And also another way to make new friends, the Flooring team are hosting Mary Gray's book launch. Mary Gray was the former events and associate editor of the Flooring team, whose column Rental Diaries has now been made into a book. So 6 p.m. on July 8th, there'll be the book launch for that. So anyone who's tuned in, and any of the Flooring team readers, are more than welcome to come along to that. And maybe there'll be new friends there. And
well, and I can say I was just at that venue Saturday night. I had never been there before. It is absolutely spectacular. For those of us that live amongst concrete, it is a spectacular garden. It's a little oasis. It's a secret in Florida that we can't tell all the tourists about.
Well, thank you. That's another great pitch for that event. So I hope to see you there as well, and all of the people who've tuned in this evening. So thank you so much, and we hope to see you at our next TF Together sessions, which the next one will be tomorrow at 5 p.m. and that'll be in collaboration with Lungarno Chats. It'll be Morgan Fumey in discussion with US Consul General Ben Warler. So you can join us tomorrow at 5 p.m. Thanks again, Elizabeth, and it was wonderful talking to you.
Pleasure. Thank you, everybody who tuned in.
Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ciao.